La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti, welcome to La Lanterna podcast. This is episode 78 with yours truly, and I'm not going to do that again, Fabrizio and my best buddy.
Hey, ciao Fabry, it's Matt. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. So 0-0 against Torino. What's your first comments, about the match overall?
Well, it's a little disappointing. I think we played, this was one of our first speed bumps, I would say, of the season. I mean, obviously we started off horribly against Fiorentina, but when the season began, we had Torino, I think maybe next up on the fixture list, or maybe it was the third match of the season. And it seemed like one where, okay, maybe we can get something. And it was a last minute loss. It seemed like maybe we could get a point coming into this match with the momentum that we had and having good results against some of the top teams. I would have thought that we would have done better, to be honest with you. But 0-0 at the end of the day is not a bad result, especially away to Torino. Torino looked really solid for much of this campaign. And I don't know. I mean, I think what's interesting about where we are right now is in different parts of the season. Obviously, we just sold Dragusin, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we didn't have him in the squad. I think maybe there's a little bit of an impact from that. We also had a visioned way of our forward line looking, I think, at the beginning of the season. We see that we're bringing in Macias, we're bringing in Retegui, and we're all envisioning these guys are going to be playing together with Goodmanson. We bring in Malinovsky. We have all of these guys that are coming in. And for one reason or another, Malinovsky originally wasn't favored as much. Retegui's obviously had some injuries. Macias has had several injuries. And we've not seen all four of those guys on the same pitch all that often. And for me, the silver lining from this match is we started to see that. And we started to see glimpses of this maybe being something that could be really exciting. But in the end, it kind of feels like another story where we get a nice Martinez save and we don't have a ton of chances on goal. And we end up with a point shared, which has been the story for a lot of the season. But again, I think that's a little bit of an overly negative view when you consider how well Torino have done so far and the fact that we get a point away from home.
Torino is in a good moment. Obviously, they lost a little bit of points. They could have been at a better spot, even talking with our friends for the Torino match. If I look at the run of form for the last 5 matches, including the match against us, it's 2 wins, 2 ties, and 1 loss. So it's not like your top team and so on. They're obviously love this 10th spot. Obviously, they don't want even to talk about that. But I believe that Torino does not deserve to stay in the 10th spot. I think it's a team that it's a lot better than what it is. But let's listen to Rob from Talking Toro podcast and to see and hear what he has to say about the match Genoa-Torino.
I think the biggest surprise about Toro's 0-0 draw against Genoa last weekend was the fact that I actually managed to get the prediction right. Probably shouldn't have been that much of a surprise given the fact that Toro haven't scored away from home since November. But yeah, I think Genoa probably would have been more disappointed of the two sides not to go on to get the 3 points. They probably had them better of the opportunities, albeit them coming from long range, especially Malinovsky.
Retegui into the path of Malinovsky. He can hit them from distance. Scorching strike from the Ukraine international. Vanya Milinkovic-Savic did get a touch.
Forced a couple of good saves from Milinkovic-Savic. On the other hand, Toro failing to get a shot on target is disappointing, but looked a little bit threatening through set pieces, but never really fancied them to sort of score. And Pellegrini coming off the bench against his former side wasn't the sort of substitute we were looking for. Juric's substitutions were a little bit negative, but I think both sides were really quite happy with the point in the end. And yeah, I managed to get a prediction right for a change.
Congrats again on the predictions. So once again, this was Rob from Talking Toro podcast with Peter as well. The weakest spot was our forward because Retegi is improving, but it's still not at his top. And we don't have any bench, so we had to keep him on the pitch for the whole entirety of the match. But after the Dragusin's loss, so our defense was like, okay, question mark. When we were missing this person, oh God, what happened? When we were missing that one, and we never even played a match without Dragusin, but defense was solid.
Yeah.
And the midfield is my, I guess, jewel of the match. So obviously they didn't score. There were opportunities and it didn't happen. The statistics speak by themselves. 6 shots on goal for Genoa and 0 for Torino. So if you look at it from that perspective, that means that there was build-up from actions were coming from left, right, and center from both sides. So let's don't forget that Torino doesn't mean that because they didn't have any shot on goal, they were not dangerous. It means that we had a good defense, perhaps, and we managed to stay on top of these dangerous players. Like I always fear every time I have Zapata as our striker against us. But the 6 shots on our side shows that there were chances from different individuals, including Gudmundsson, including Malinowski, including even Retegi, and even Sloppier might not, and especially Messias. Messias is just like a wonderful player to watch.
No, that's what's exciting. It just was really fun seeing all of a sudden. It was the first game I really remember saying with Messias in Rosso Blue, like, oh, wow, this is exciting. This is fun. Because we've only seen him in glimpses in certain spats. And there were some moments in this match that were really exciting. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think defensively, obviously, we've seen a lot of Vázquez this season, maybe not as much in a back three, but Vázquez, Bani, De Winter, and, also, by the way, like maybe something that's newer for him, but if Vázquez kind of just aims it was a corner kick, or I think it was a corner. If he aims that just a little bit differently, we probably end 1-0 with a win for us. So, and I don't put too much blame on him for that because I don't think you always expect the defenders to bury the ball in the back of the net. But it's encouraging for me, in my opinion, because you see players like that who are coming in, who are stepping up. And again, I think there's a relatively fair disappointment in the result, but at the end of the day, it's still a point away from home. And I just keep coming back to that because we need to have these results, and it's not an embarrassing result against a good side by any stretch of the imagination. So that's how I kind of see it. I think we would have loved to see a win. I kind of expected to see us win this match, but at the same time, a point is a point and we need it.
Gilardino essentially, maybe not the right wording for me. It took me a little bit to understand it, but essentially said there was 1%. If we had that 1% more, we would have probably took that the result home by winning, scoring or something. And for sure, they had an amazing goalie, a great defense. And again, it's just as continuously to talk about Torino. It's a good team and we should not forget about that. Let's quickly go to the transfer market. So Dragusin is the biggest name that everyone was talking for what? Like forever. It felt like enough already. I don't want to talk about it. Just sell them already.
I know.
And so it's 31 million. Some people say 30, 25 plus 5 or 25 plus 6. Ultimately, it's a good chunk of money. The ownership have always said that they didn't want to sell and disrupt the team itself. Ultimately, if you look at it from the Torino's perspective, not much really got disrupted other than the fact of losing such an amazing player. That's probably one of the biggest thing I've seen that was missing in the Torino match was our jumper in the box on set pieces like corners. So I guess Gilardino has to focus a lot more on someone else tall, someone else with a big physique. And I guess that would be Retegi. But
yeah,
story over. One thing that I've shared with a friend of mine, actually, if you've seen the first pod, if you heard our first pod was with my colleague, Sean, he's a Juventino. And we were just at work and talking about football, soccer in general. And I said, I just want to hear something interesting. So when Dragusin came to Genoa, mind you that people didn't receive him well because it was dragging a little bit. pun on words, Dragusin dragging, but dragging a little bit because it seemed like he didn't want to come. I mean, we only know what we see, and we don't really know what happens in the background. And plus, he had that history at Sampdoria, so it wasn't one of the warmest welcomes when he came. Obviously, he proved himself to be what he was, and we've enjoyed him since, right? But when he first came, so what my point to this was with Instagram, when the club announced his signing with the annunciation of the player itself, there were about 5,000 to 6,000 likes to his to the club's post. Again, warm welcome because of what I said before. But then I was comparing it with the Tottenham annunciation from the actual club, and that's over 220,000 likes. So that's huge difference. But, that's also EPL and or a team from London compared to Genoa. Anyways, going back to us, so we have Spence also as a new player coming in on a loan with the right to buy, and he is taking over Hefty's departure. So he's more of a right side right back, maybe, but apparently he seems to be a little bit more on the forward type of approach rather than on the defensive side, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Jagiello seems more close to be at Spezia, so a lot of rumors from these journalists that we just love to hear them, or maybe not, talking about Jagiello going to Hertha Berlin, but the truth seems that he might be going off to Spezia. Then, the last one I've heard now was also Puskás, almost closed done deal with Bari.
Interesting.
I guess the last there's a whole bunch of rumors here and there, left and right. We're talking about at least one per area, so one defender, one midfielder, and one striker, like the second to Retegi. Juric, people, do you want him, not want him? Other people talking about Pellegrini. Then now the last one was Niang, a former Genoa player back in the early 2010s. People are talking about he's 29 years old. I don't know. He's in Turkey. So I was like, oh my God, again, another one from Turkey. No, please, no, right? But the one, I guess, I don't know if you want to spend a couple seconds to talk about is this young guy coming from Salernitana, Bohinen.
Yeah, so I think we'll talk more about this with our guest and who's coming on. It seems like this is actually going to happen, but he's played a decent amount for Salernitana over the last few seasons. Personally, I'm a little bit less familiar with his game and what we're going to get from him, but he plays certainly in a position where we're going to need more reinforcements. We always talk about the midfield being surprisingly thin in some ways, even though we have some great talent there. And especially with some of our guys being on the older side, having someone who has maybe more energy, who maybe we can kind of help grow in their career, maybe put a spotlight on like we've done in other players. I think there's something that's going on with that too, which is really interesting. I know there's lots of rumors and lots of things going around, but I have to bring up, because we're recording today and this has been seemingly everywhere, and Gazzetta putting posts of this stuff too, but the Goodmanson to Juve rumors and all of these types of things. I know we're shaking our heads. I also know we were shaking our heads when we heard about Dragusin, even on the last podcast, a day before this thing gets announced. We're like, hey, this isn't really going to happen. And then,
it's true.
And then it happens. And so if I understand correctly, I mean, I think there's some talks about it happening potentially in the summer, but some talks about it happening maybe what if it happens in the January window, which I think is insane, and I don't think would actually be something that Zangrillo and company would allow. If so, you have to look at the words that he's put out there in the last few weeks and with complete disregard, because he basically said very unequivocally we were not going to take on any other players or sell any other important players. Well, it remains to be seen. It would break my heart if we did anything like that. I don't think that we will, but these things are out there, and it doesn't seem like there's anything concrete that's happened. There's no bids, but there's rumors of agents talking and people at different clubs having some conversations with one another. So all kind of a bunch of soft things right now, but hopefully, to your point, we have more rumors on incomings, like the player we were just talking about from Salernitana, and less from guys who are on their way out.
A lot of journalists also used to Preziosi, so Genoa was a supermarket, so obviously they always associate that. Always, I don't know, but at least from the recent past. And hopefully we can get used to the future to be more like a Dragusin perspective, like a one-off every here and there, and having teams bidding on our player for who can snatch it out.
Yeah, that obviously it's going to be. This feels like the first real test of 7-7-7 in that way. When they first came in and took over, obviously there was a big flurry of transfer signings in their first window in the winter market. That's where we got Gudmundsson and a number of other players. Serie B is Serie B. You have to let some people go. You need to bring people in to reinforce the squad, but it's not at all the same. And now we're back in Serie A, and we're showing off our talent to the world. We're having people kind of get a taste for this and see a little bit of who we have as players and what our talent looks like. So I think that like now you have other teams checking things out. We'll understand more clearly where our ownership lies with moving players on and what our replacement plan is. That being said, I guess we never really had a formal reaction to this. The Dragusin sale, while it hurts a little bit, I think is fairly sensible. Personally, I really like Dragusin as a player. I think in his time with us, he was very committed to the Rosso Blu. He was a real kind of symbol for our team in the way that we played both under Blessing and also under Gilardino, especially under the prior season in Serie B up to now. Well, of course, that was when he joined. I think that when you get that type of funds, we kind of need to replace the squad that way. And with Spence, one thing that we didn't talk as much about, but in our group chat, we have a little inside information. We'll let some folks in on. Alex in the We Are Genoa group chat was mentioning one of our friends from Genoa Club UK, having conversations with other fans of Spurs and getting kind of the Tottenham view on Spence. I think a lot of people believe, well, he's got a lot of talent, but Tottenham aren't really great at developing talent. So, maybe you guys have someone that could really be someone for the future. And I think that's great that there's that upside and that there's that opportunity. And I remember when Spence was an incredibly sought after commodity. I know Arsenal and Tottenham were both bidding for him 2 summers ago. He had an incredible campaign with Nottingham Forest, which got them promoted. There's a lot of really good chatter about him. I think like for us, it almost seems like it's a low risk type of a movement. Like we are not paying his wages, I don't think at all this season. We have the option to buy at the end of the season at a relatively reasonable fee of 10 million euro, right? I think it's euro, not pounds, but it's not an obligation to buy. So, we look at this guy, if we think he's a really good player, if we think at some point he could become a Dragusin, like 10 million is not a ridiculous amount to invest in a player. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. So I think we'll see, but it seems like something that it's a wise decision for us. It's hopefully an exciting one. I think if we get Jed Spence into a position where he gets comfortable and is playing like he was playing in his Forest days, I think he might become a big kind of favorite at the Marassi. But
he has potential to do so, right?
He does. And the thing that's exciting about it is like, so when you think about where we are, and I know even when we were going back in the summertime, we were talking a bit about like transfer places and places to fill in. And I know left back or left wing back was one of the things that was there. But I think in general, re-upping on the wing back position makes a lot of sense because we've seen, I think, fairly clearly that Gilardino loves to utilize his wing backs in an attacking formation. Deploying Stefano Sabelli in a place where he's seemingly almost always in the opponent's other half of the pitch. I'm not sure that's traditionally Sabelli's role. And I think it's just how he wants to play the game. It's how he wants to put pressure on the opponent, how he's thinking about getting extra numbers and all these other things. And we've talked so many times about how there's rotation at the back. And sometimes you have a back three that, someone drops back from the midfield and it becomes a back four when we're out of possession and all these things, and having a really kind of energetic, pacey player on the flanks gives us an opportunity. It also helps us try to win the ball back early in the pitch, which is another big hallmark of how Gilardino wants to kind of play. So it makes sense in those regards. And I think all we can look at it is say, let's give this guy a shot. Let's give him our voice when he's on the pitch. And hopefully we end up seeing some really positive returns out of it.
Not to forget that I'm just going to say this just because a lot of people are saying, well, now it's time to invest. Yes, it's true. It will be time to invest. But at the same time, let's not forget that there's a lot of also obligation to buys that are going to step in. One, above all, not with respect to the amount of money, but that it just happened just not, I think from last match, I can't remember what was the clause, but I think it was the amount of matches. So Messias is now going to be officially have to be bought out. There was a clause to say if he reaches something, and I believe, again, that was the matches, it's an obligation to buy. So Messias is going to be officially a Genoa player. Others that will need to be bought out because they had the obligation to buy are, for example, De Vinter. He's another one that will have to pay the money to Juventus, and so on and so forth. There's not many, mind you, because we do have a lot. Another one is Thorsby. Unfortunately, you know how I feel about him. It's these are still prices that you still have to pay, and it's important to have cash in the flow right now, especially for these two transfer markets. All right. So without further ado, I guess let's go to the break, and we'll have a special guest from Salernitana coming right up.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to La Lantana Podcast. Bentornati. So this is part 2, and we have a special guest. It's the second time that we have him in our salotto or pub or whatever we're going to call it. So welcome back to La Lantana, Olindo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me again.
So to remind everyone, Olindo is a Salernitana, of course, fan, and he's from, actually I'll let him tell, because I might chop the name, Philly Granata.
Yes, I'm from Philadelphia currently. I'm from Agropoli in the province of Salerno, but as I mentioned in the past episode, I've been here for school in Philly, and I'm getting ready to graduate from Drexel University.
Does that mean you're going back to Italy after?
No. I'm probably going to stay here and
okay.
do a job, yeah.
Good. All right. So I know Salernitana. So what has happened to Salernitana since we last spoke? A lot has happened. We're after match day 20. So it's already second leg now. And during the transfer market for the winter window. And what's happening? Why? I mean, no, there's no why. But what's going on? What's your take on the overall first leg?
Since we last met, I think the morale has switched like a complete 180. I remember that game against Genoa, and it was pretty negative. Everything surrounding the team and the coach and everything. It was one of the first games Inzaghi was in. But since then, we've been starting since they fired our sporting director. Well, he resigned, and we got Sabatini back. There's been a big change, even though Sabatini didn't actually endorse Inzaghi, but Inzaghi, he's a really tough guy, tough coach, and he's been giving it all, and the team's been giving it all in the past few games. Ever since the Milan game, there's been a big switch, and I'm happy for the attitude they have, but I'm less happy for the points that we got. But if we keep playing like this, the points will come, and I'm sure we'll be fine in the end.
Well, that needless, and I know you didn't want to talk too much about it, but that needless to say, what happened in the last match. So just to recap for everybody else, it's like the big derby for you guys. Yeah. So it was in Napoli. So Napoli beat Salernitana 2-1.
Yeah. And it felt like it could have been different since our morale was high, theirs was low. Of course, they're a better team, and it was a good game. The second half was a little bit bad from both ends, so it makes sense that the better team with the better player ended up winning. But it's the how. Hard. Yeah, it's how and hard because same thing happened against Juve, and then we tied against Milan in the last minute as well. So at least we won against Verona in between, but we could have, if we had more points at this point, nobody would have been against it. Nobody would have said that we didn't deserve them. Like in Italian, we say that we wouldn't have stolen anything. So that's how I feel.
No, that's true, and I kind of have to say that for anybody that I don't know if they have whoever's listening has followed it or not, quite a few managerial positions. I think it was like your president and first on top have complained officially to the AIA, which is the official refereeing body, to say that they want the selector of the referees to resign. Obviously, there's a lot of people complaining about how in the past how Salernitana won certain games and whatnot, but ultimately the truth is, let's look at the facts and let's not look at what is, conjectures and people thinking that what might have happened or not have happened. The truth is what's visible today, and we have had some bad refereeing this year as well, so I can only sympathize with that. I'm not sure, what do you think about that, Matt?
I mean, we've definitely seen our side of that stuff as well. It's been a weird season in that way, and I feel like when we're kind of not in the top six, top half of the table, you don't get the calls as often. Things seem to kind of be a little bit more tilted against you, and in those more even matches, like Olindo was just talking about. Sometimes it kind of feels like you're more likely to be on the other side of it, partially because of that, because there's just like so many other things you're going up against.
The big sisters have control almost. It feels like, anyways, right?
Yeah.
Where
I remember Pulisic handball, then the 1-0.
Oh, man.
That's the big one.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I still talk about that. Someone the other day was talking about how, in the U.S., of course, it's always the big thing when Pulisic gets anything, and when he was the player of the month and everything else.
Yeah.
Our group chats, one of our other group chats was going crazy about like, oh, guess who's the Serie A player of the month? And I said, oh, the handball specialist.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Also, Lecce almost won 3-2 against Milan at home, and they disallowed that goal from Piccoli. So it's not just against Salernitana, so I can't take
No, it's an overall, like, I'm not going to even want to call the medium to small, but all the non-big sisters, and I call them the grandi sorelle, how we say in Italian, but it's like your typical, and I'm not going to say the names of the teams, everybody knows them, and whenever they like, anyways, this is like a big, huge conversation. So it's never going to end. First and second, we're not going to solve anything.
Yeah, I completely agree with what our president said, but not about the Rocky resigning the designator, but more about how the television, the TV outlets, how they just shy away from any controversy, and they just keep pushing whatever. Even on live TV, like if I see a corner kick and maybe I see a little handball, I don't always see a replay if would be for Salernitana, but if it was on the other side, I would see a million replays and in super slow motion. When, of course, if you look at all the contacts that happen on a corner kick in slow motion, they're all going to be penalties. So I think they're a little bit too harsh on those small teams.
I can add also on top of the TVs, it's also all the media, all throughout social media, or even the usual Italian and English. All we speak about is whatever happened bad, and I'm using the quotation because it's like, oh my God, how dare you do that to them, right? And it's always about them and nothing about everything else. Like, to your point, no really major aspects talking about you guys. Nothing much about Lecce. Definitely nothing when it came to us. But it seems okay.
And then they blamed the guy that missed the penalty against Inter. They blamed him. They said, we didn't miss the penalty, that guy did. I think they need a figure that just manages communication because you can't say that. Like, it's childish. So if you're a big institution in between professionals that make millions and millions and millions, you can't say stuff like that. Like, it's just unprofessional.
It's just too obvious. I think that's part of the problem, especially for us. We look at it on the outside. It's just like, it's way too, like, I don't know. But I digress. Olindo, actually, that take is interesting because I would have thought, like, seeing, I'll be honest, I've not paid as much attention to Salernitana, but seeing you guys still at bottom, I would have thought it would have been doom and gloom. But it seems like maybe the results aren't there, but the way the team is showing up is, and it's only a matter of time before fortunes turn. At least that's what it seems.
Yeah.
Like. Is that about right?
Yes, that's very true. We dominated against Juventus, and let's say there wasn't a red card. They gave a yellow card instead of a red card to one of their players, and then the first chance in the second half, when we were still up 1-0, they gave us a ticky-tack double yellow while one of our players was being fouled. So, like, starting with that, we played 40 minutes, one man down against Juventus, and we were still winning. And then at the end, we lost with the Vlahovic header. And after that, I'd say against Juve is the one that we deserved the most. Against Napoli, we didn't play much in the second half, so like it was easy to see that it could have went that way for them. Milan, a tie overall was a good result, but the Juve game is really harsh.
Lots of red cards.
Yeah, and it was really. I remember a few fouls that weren't called against. Like for Kostic deserved a yellow card. He got the ball between his legs and he fouled our player, and he didn't get even called a foul. It was just, I don't know, but. I guess it's he said, she said, whatever. It's just my word against theirs. So we can't focus too much on this because at the end of the day, Juve is Juve. 9 times out of 10 they win. So just because they're a better team, so we should focus on against Genoa or against Frosinone.
Hey.
We lost a ton of points against these smaller teams. So
likewise, no, I totally sympathize and I understand exactly. I mean, of course. You're touching a sore spot there by saying playing against Zero, but it's true. Honestly, it is true. And the same for us, except for with the match against you guys in the first leg, but we lost a ton of points. Some statistics talk about 12 points with that we've lost down on the road. And I'm sure even for you guys, it's the same. So having said that, so last spot to what Matt was saying, 20th spot with 12 points, but it's not the end of the story, because if you think about what happened to Salernitana only 2 years ago, it was a total turnaround. Now, things are different. It seems to me this year the season is a lot more balanced, at least in the middle to bottom table. Yeah. A lot more, even at the bottom, you're already in double digits, which was a little bit in the last few years. I remember always seeing at least one.
Yeah, at least one clear last place. Yeah,
right. But I don't see that now with Salernitana, obviously, because it just doesn't seem like that. Even Empoli, they seem to be all gone and done now. With Davide Nicola, things can turn around, and he's a good friend of both of our teams.
Yeah, not a good friend of Candreva. He kicked him out of town.
For us, we're okay with that, but we're biased against Candreva. So.
Oh yeah, true. But did you see that goal he scored? He only scores.
It's only, it's true. It's only just ridiculous goals every time.
And against the big ones too, right? So it makes it even more spectacular, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. So that makes it to match 21. So it's going to be not easy for either side. It's going to be down in Salerno. So we're going to be playing Sunday this time around. It's at 12 noon Eastern time in North America, or 6 p.m. local time, 1800, depending on how you want to read that. But so Sunday. So what are your, I guess, let's see, what do you think about the match? You more or less started to say that there's results are just a matter of happening, but what do you see, not the prediction itself, but what do you fear the most, I suppose, after almost a whole leg that went through since last time we met, because we know they're asymmetrical right now, so we didn't meet each other in match day 2 in the first leg. But at the same time, what's your biggest fears, I suppose, and what's your biggest strength that you're comfortable and confident on your team?
Well, my biggest fear would it's Gudmundsson. So I think he can hold up the whole team, and it's mostly dependent on, not mostly, but highly dependent on his performance. I haven't seen much from Retegui. I just traded him away on my fantasy team, my Fantacalcio team. Yeah, I got him for Gatti as soon as he scored his third goal, and then I just gave him away I got Sommer, so I got good goalkeeper. So it's a fair trade. But I haven't seen him to his full potential. He started well on the national team, but I think he's been having injury problems. And for our strengths, I think that the stadium is going to be really loud, especially because we haven't won games that we deserve to win. I think we could have had more points, as I said earlier. But I think the stadium's going to be rocking, and even though we might have, I'm not gonna start making excuses, but I think that the refs, they seem like that they are big retaliators. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had some questionable calls from now on. But it's okay, because I think Salernitana is strong. Especially, we just got some new young guys and some new players that are gonna come in. No, I think we'll be fine in the end. I think we'll be fine. I'm not worried about relegation.
talking about the young guys that you're talking about, Aswan, it seems like Genoa is closing a deal with, or it's close to closing a deal with Salernitana with respects to an interesting, I suppose, player after we got Jed Spence from the deal after selling Dragusin. Then the first one that seems to come to play is this midfielder from Salernitana. So the first thing that comes to mind, my first question is going to be like, what do you think about him? But the first thing that comes to mind is to say, well, why are you guys getting rid of him if he's that great? That as they are kind of trying to say like he's going to be like the vice, the second to Badel. So like some sort of a regista, some sort of like a midfielder Swan. But then why are you guys getting, I know he had some injuries and he didn't have a chance to really get back into the squad, but I guess what are your comments around this kid?
I think that as of most recent history, he's been avoiding playing because I think he was clocked out. He didn't want to play for us anymore. Mostly, I think it's from coaching issues. I like him a lot. I wish the coaches put him in the right conditions to play, which is for me a midfield with him in the middle and two mezzali, with a 3 midfield. Like for you, I would be like a 3-5-2. He would fit perfect in the middle, but he needs 2 people next to him, and because he's on the slower side, but he needs that protection because he has great vision and great passing. So Salernitana didn't put him in the right conditions since Nicola left. Since those 6 months that we made the miracle escape. But since then, we've always played a 2 in the midfield, and him being one of them, it was always bad because he couldn't keep up physically because, as I said, he's on the slower side. But a lot of the issues coming with our midfield were because he was being put in a 2-man midfield instead of a 3. I wish we could have used him better because he's great. I think he had great potential, probably more than Ederson. And now we see Ederson; he's going for 40 million. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm curious actually to maybe flip the script a little bit, Olindo, and you mentioned a couple of young players that are kind of exciting on your guys' side. So we're talking a little bit about Bohinen earlier and potentially what he could mean for Genoa. Makes me a little bit more nervous that he's kind of been like waiting for the transfer, but maybe that's because he's just been there for a minute.
Yeah.
But in terms of these other new guys, is there anybody that you're particularly excited about, or players that maybe us as Genoa fans should be a little bit nervous for, or should look out for in the match?
Yeah, we haven't. I think the bulk of the transfers haven't came in yet. Just maybe the filler positions came in. But Pierozzi is a young player. He was born in 2001 from Fiorentina. He did great things in Serie C with Pro Patria. He scored, I think he scored 8 goals and 4 assists. And last year in Serie B, he had 4 goals and 2 assists under Pippo Inzaghi for Regina. And when he came in against Napoli, he showed that he had a lot of. He wanted to be on the field and he was fighting for it. So I think he's gonna be good in the long run. He'll be useful, especially since Mazzocchi left. I don't know if you remember him, but he went to Napoli. So he filled the position. And then we also got Zanoli from Napoli, another right wing back. Used to play for Sampdoria. So you know him.
Oh,
yeah. So
we've been hearing about him since last summer. And so this ADL is not really going well with a lot of fans right now.
Yeah.
As usual.
Yeah, they just don't believe in him. I think he's quick, he's smart. Di Lorenzo he can play every game for 90 minutes, so that's why he's never played. So
right.
All right, so I guess we can go into the predictions. I mean, we more or less talked about it, but let's go more let's dive deep now into the matches. So I guess tactics wise and/or just whatever you feel to talk about. So let's start with you, Olindo.
Yeah, I think Salernitana is gonna win this game, and I think they've settled with the problems that they had on defense. Fati has been playing great in the back. I was really mad at him against Fiorentina where we were down 2 or 3-0 very fast. I think they've figured out what works on defense. So I think it'll be. I hope we scored at least 2 goals and I don't think we're gonna. I think 2-1 is a good prediction, but I hope that we keep the clean sheet. And Ochoa is back too. Forgot he made some great saves on Saturday.
I'm curious because, I guess this will be 2 weeks back to back of us having a good keeper on the opposite side, with us playing against Milinkovic-Savic for Torino the weekend before, and Ochoa obviously is an imposing figure on your guys' side too. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be difficult for Genoa. I know, obviously, we're away from home this match. I think what's kind of interesting for me is, so we've not exactly seen a major flurry of offensive play ourselves. We haven't lost a game in the last 5, although almost all of those matches, barring Sassuolo, were draws. But I'm kind of curious because while Torino ended 0-0 and maybe there wasn't a whole lot of action going on in that match, there were some moments where, and it's the first time I ever saw this season, I'm with you, unfortunately, on Retegui kind of being, we haven't seen a whole lot from him lately, and there's definite reasons for that. I don't think it's a talent problem. But there were moments in the match where I saw, which I hadn't seen before, Gudmundsson, Macias, Retegui all playing off of each other. And it was like, whoa, this is a new thing. Like, these guys really have this kind of connection. And I wonder if there's anything that we can figure out in this match as well against Salernitana, maybe see something happen. I think Genoa may win this one, but I also think it's a coin flip for me. If we do win the match, I think it will be more like a 1-0 probably than a 2-1. I think probably would predict, if I wanted to go out on a limb and say something crazy, I'd probably say Macias, but I think it'll be more likely Malinovsky or Gudmundsson that are on the goal sheet. But it'll be a good game. I think it's another challenging away match. I mean, it's also remarkable. I mean, if you look at like Salernitana's like last, I don't know how many matches, but it's like, it seems like every opponent you guys have had going back, I don't know, back into the fall has been pretty tough. Like, barring maybe Verona. Yeah. But you obviously most recently played Napoli, you talked about Juve,
we beat Lazio at home.
Lazio at home. You had Atalanta in there in that fixture list. Like, it's a lot of teams. Talked about Milan also. So I mean, and Bologna, who are a top team right now. So it's a lot of kind of competitive matches all stacked up against each other. And I think Genoa would be very unwise to look at this matches and walk in the park or anything close to that.
I think the stadium, the atmosphere is gonna. We need a 12-man. I think they're gonna bring it. So I think that's also a factor that you should pay attention to.
No, that's definitely all valid points. Actually, I wanted to add the fact that on the road, we're not known to be great performers. Yeah. Not necessarily performers, but definitely bringing back a lot of points back home. The next few matches for us are going to be tough. I mean, some are okay, but nothing is easy. Period, right? So we are going to face you guys on the road, then at home against Lecce, then away at Empoli, just changing their coach right now, then Atalanta at home, Napoli, Udinese, and so on. So it's ups and downs, but you have to start to make points, especially when you're trying to put in your pocket the salvataggio to stay in Serie A anyways. And for you guys, it's same thing actually on the opposite side for different reasons, but at home against us, then at home again against Roma, and they just changed coach themselves.
Yeah, and that's a big opportunity for us.
So it's a big rebound usually when you get the new coaches for a while anyways. And then on a road trip, you have to go to Torino, which are in great form. Then at home against Empoli, so it's like a direct confrontation sort of thing. Then Inter, Monza, and so on. But I mean, none are easy, all tough. And for that matter. To Matt's point, I think most surely Gilardino knows that this is going to be a very difficult match. To his point as well, there was some different transformation, as we said also in the first half, with respects to what happened to our midfield. So now we have a new player that is only our question mark with respects to Spence, and also eventually if we get yours. Yeah. Ultimately, what happened after the departure of Dragusin was the fact of finding this from an amazing defense that we had in the past, now such a great focus on the midfield. So with these big names and so on, and we saw this sort of, it's almost like if they knew exactly how to play against with each other, and they have been playing for several seasons and so on. It was something really fantastic. So what I'm trying to get with this is, in my opinion, contrary to what you both are saying, I think it's going to be, with two great goalies on both sides, I think it's going to be a 0-0. It might be boring at times, just because both teams are going to be studying each other, afraid of going too much and so on. But both playing a 3-5-2, it's just going to be. I think it's the nature of the game where it we need the points, but we don't want to lose. You need the points, but you can't lose. And I think that's what it will look like for me, obviously.
I think we can lose because I've watched Serie A for a while now, and all the smaller teams like this year, Frosinone, Lecce, even Genoa, when they get up to 20 points in the first half, and it seems like it's all going great. There's usually you go down really fast and lose a lot of points. It happened to Benevento, it happened to Venezia, so I think a lot of teams are gonna get sucked into that battle in the down there, and I think Salernitana can still lose. We have until March, and then March is when it starts to pick up, and that's when it's gonna be intense. But I think I also disagree in our future games. I think Roma is easier now than it would have been if they were in good shape under Mourinho. Empoli, I think Nicola, I think we're playing at home, and Nicola coming back, we have a good chance. I think these matchups are gonna be good, and against Inter too, it'll be right in between the Champions League. So I think we have pretty good chance to get a bunch of points now. I hope at least 10, and that's 5 or 6 games. I hope at least 10.
Yeah, I mean, a cautious approach would kind of make sense from Gilardino, but the one thing I will agree with Olindo on this one is that it's a really compact table when you look at like where we are. And in fact, like what is mind-blowing to me, I looked at this earlier today and I couldn't believe it. We're closer to the relegation spots than we are to Torino in 10th place, if you can believe that. We're almost exactly, we are.
No, you're right. Torino 10th spot, 2 spots above us, but they're 6 points above us, while Verona is just 5 points below us.
Right. And that's the difference between 12th and 18th is 5 points. And obviously there's a bit more of a gap with Salernitana and Empoli, but like that's not an insurmountable one. It's 4 and 5 points there. So that's what's going to be interesting in the second half of the season is every team is all still kind of in the mix in some form or another. We lose 2 games, all of a sudden we could be looking at level pegging with a team like Verona or Cagliari, and then we start sweating stuff. So it's a challenging one. I don't think that Gilardino is going to change his approach all that much, partially because of that. But also maybe to your point, Fabry, you mentioned this a little bit. Like we have some guys like Spence. We just had obviously a big transfer departure with Dragusin. We've not probably. I mean, we sub like on a reasonable level, but I would think that among some fans, there's a little bit of like a fatigue concern, particularly among our best players who we need a lot out of, like a player like a Goodmanson, or, we don't really have a Goodmanson replacement, obviously. Like Jed Spence is a guy that we signed for, a potential future attacking fullback type of a player in a position we've not figured out how to really rotate either, to be honest with you, which is partially why we let Hefty move on to France for the rest of this season. So it'll be interesting for sure. I think that this is going to be one that we're going to want to get points from, but I understand though. I wouldn't be surprised in a draw. I think seeing us like not go out and try to get points would be, for me, even though it makes some sense, consolidating our position makes some sense. I think part of the point is that we maybe don't have that safe of a position. So we need to figure out how we can get as much as we can.
That's absolutely correct. All right. So I guess we are at a wrap. I suppose, Olindo, if anyone wants to reach out to you, wants to not only to you, but also to meet up because they're Salernitana fans or interested in watching matches with you and or with the Philly Granata club, how can they reach out to you guys?
Yes, if you're in Philly and you'd like to reach out and watch Salernitana matches, you can reach out to us on Instagram. It'll be Philly Granata. Like, I don't know if they could see this at the bottom, but I'm sure you'll post it. And if you are in New York, San Mateo, all of their locations show the Salernitana games, and there's always somebody from Salerno there. So it'll be a great experience for you here in the U.S. On Saturday, we had a guest he's from Amsterdam, and his father moved to the Netherlands from the province of Salerno, and he was in New York for vacation, and he came to watch the game with us. And it was I felt like that was a great thing because we need points of reference here in the U.S. as well for all the fans for Serie A and Salernitana and all the teams in general.
Hey, we are all about that. We were just having a group chat message about that, about, I'm sure you guys have seen, and you guys have been featured on it too, like the Serie A North America pages and stuff.
Yeah.
How can we get more of like us on there, like more Salernitana, more Genoa, more like other clubs, and build that reputation a bit more so we can get more fans of these?
Yeah.
I don't want other teams, but like we want to get more representation out there.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I want to send them the picture from Saturday.
That's absolutely good to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So again, thank you very much, Olindo, for joining us. You're always welcome on our pod, of course. All the best for the match on Sunday. I'm sure it's not going to be easy regardless. I should have said that with a tripleta, like it could go either way. Anyways, but the truth is it's going to be always, the good thing is that we have a match every week. And that's the important thing. And obviously in Serie A. All right. So thank you very much again. And never forget, always and forever, Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.